Hello YouTubers, this is a video that is dedicated to our friend in the vinyl community, Steve Carlson, who lost his record collection and his home in a flood, and there's been lots of love from the vinyl community aimed at him, so I thought I'd do my love sharing as well. First of all, I'm very fond of Steve Carlson, even though I don't know him that well, but I've always watched his videos, and his enthusiasm catches me all the time, and he's always been a very friendly chap in writing comments or answering questions or whatever, or just, being plain silly. And the kind of guy I think that all of us more or less unsocial record collectors would like to hang with. So we're really sad about this that happened to him. So in this video we're going to have a Steve theme in this video thread. There are others who have made videos too, and I saw first my good friend Jörgen his video, so I thought I should make one too. And so we're having a Steve theme here, and so I'm going to show you my 5 favorite Steves on vinyl. But of course, first of all, my favorite Steve in the vinyl community, that's you, Steve Carlson. And I hope everything gets well for you, because you deserve it, and we miss your enthusiastic presence here in the vinyl community. Okay, enough of that. Let's look at records, because that's why we're here. Okay, my first favorite Steve is the singer and songwriter Steve Ashley. And this is Stroll On, which I think is his first or maybe second album. I should have checked this. I should have really checked this before, but I know I have his 2 first albums, and I think this is either the first or the second one. Stroll On, it's on the Gull Records label from 1975. I first heard of Steve Ashley on a CD box with, some sort of folk rock compilation, and he had a song there called, was it Once in a While? Yeah, anyway, I was very fond of it and his way of performing. And it's not that easy to find his records, because these 2 first ones, those are the only ones that I've found, and I'm looking fairly actively for them. But Steve Ashley, and over to the next Steve, and that's probably, and this is probably his most famous album. I'm talking about Steve Forbert, who, poor chap, was named as the new Bob Dylan when he first appeared in the late 70s. This is from 1979. It contains his most famous song, I think, Romeo's Tune, which I think was a bit of a hit. The record is called Jackrabbit Slim. And it's always a good way to really, not kill a career, but I mean to make it stumble a bit by calling them a new Bob Dylan, because he's not a new Bob Dylan, he's Steve Forbert. He's a great singer, songwriter. This is a great album, and he made quite a lot of albums. This is for Epic. In the late 70s, early 80s. This is probably the most famous one, and as I said, Romeo's Tune, that's the song that I've heard about before I found this album many years ago. So, that's the second Steve. Well, those 2 Steves, pop music. The next 3 Steves have more of a they are more connected to comedy. And the first one is both comedy and jazz music. And Steve, who can that be? Who can that be? I think those of you who are a bit older in the United States may get who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Steve Allen. I've seen lots of clips with Steve Allen on YouTube, mostly in my old favorite American TV show, What's My Line, where he's done lots of great stuff. This is a comedy album where he makes funny phone calls. He calls people and talks, well, nonsense to them. A bit of a forerunner to the Swedish Kalle Sändare. Those in Sweden know who I'm talking about. This is on the label Dot Records, and it is from, which year can it be? It must be the early 60s. It has this lovely black Dot label. I don't see this that often, and of course I'm not in America, so I don't see these kind of issues that often at all, but it must be important, of course. Excerpts taken directly from the nation's top TV program, from the Steve Allen Show. So I guess these were made live with the television audience, and then the people he called gave him permission to issue these LP, and it's fun. Funny guy. Okay, the next Steve was my favorite Steve in the 80s. Not really on record, because I didn't have any record with him back then, but on cinema. And I'm talking about Steve Martin. In the 80s, he made some really great comedies, and they were often aired in Swedish television, so I watched them and I was a big fan. And he also made some comedy albums. Also, he was, I didn't know that until not that long ago, but he was active as a comedy writer back in the 1960s with the Smothers Brothers, and so he's a real veteran. The only thing I really don't like with Steve Martin is the fact that he made the movies where he took over Peter Sellers' Inspector Clouseau, the Pink Panther. He should have let that be, really. Okay, but this is probably his most famous comedy album, A Wild and Crazy Guy. You can really hear the way he would say it, and this is on Warner Brothers. From 1978, we got both music, and because he's a skillful musician as well, and lots of talking. And it is a wild and crazy album. Well, Steve, you're a bit of a wild and crazy guy too, from watching your movie, but in the best possible sense, of course. All right, the last one is not by an artist called Steve, but by a character called Steve, or with the Swedish way of pronouncing it, Steve. Those in Sweden know who I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Swedish comedian and journalist and comedian Sven Melander, who played a character called Steve. And this is an album with his monologues and other sketches from a TV show called Tack för kaffet that was aired in the early 90s. Steve med Lloyden. And Lloyd, he appeared first as a character in a TV show that were a couple of years earlier. And the thing about Sven Melander is that he's from southern Sweden, deep in the southern Sweden, and he plays a man from way up in the north. So that makes it a bit weird to have somebody who usually talks with a very with a southern Skåne accent try to speak some sort of fake norrländska accent, because, well, I come from way up in the north, so I know how it sounds and how it doesn't sound, but never mind. It makes fun of us people up there in the north, and I think that's fine. Anyway, what's so fun about this guy or this character was that he usually told stories about and he was a bit of a bragger, and he exaggerated quite a lot, and he bragged about everything, and the thing he bragged most about was his amazing car. That is a Lloyd Alexander. And when I first heard about him mentioning that he had a car called Lloyd Alexander, I first realized, well, that must be some sort of joke. I didn't know a thing about old cars back then, but I knew this was when I was a kid, remember that. But I knew about the author, Lloyd Alexander, who I was a great fan of, and I read lots of his books back then. So I thought it was some sort of joke. But then later, I found out there was a car called, and this is in internet, in the days of beloved internet, many years later, I found out there actually was a car called Lloyd Alexander. And this is apparently one of them. A car that, well, from the description, you really shouldn't have, really have no reason at all to brag about it, but he bragged. Yeah, and yeah, this is the last Steve record that I'm going to show you here, and yeah, thank you for watching, Steve. All of the love from the vinyl community goes to you, and I hope that many of us can help you as much as you need and as much as you wish. I know there are already things happening there, money being, there's a GoFund thing going on, so we'll hope for the best. And alright, and also, all of you who have been watching this, thank you for watching, and keep spinning those records, and thank you for watching.